Hey everybody, and welcome to Q&A Wednesday, where I answer the questions that you have about your health and fitness goals. So I am still outside because it is still nice. What I love about the Pacific Northwest, at least where I live, is that we get kind of an Indian summer. So although tomorrow is October 1st, it feels amazing. It cools off at night, so I opened my window, but it is still gorgeous outside. And I know in a few more weeks, I'm not gonna be able to be outside to do this. So I'm taking advantage of that. And of course, the smoke is gone for the most part, so we're good to go. So I know that this is not necessarily a common question, although I did have a request for this. So we're going to talk a little bit about doctors and whether or not your doctor is the right one for you. And I do have a couple of examples of what I mean by that. And so we're going to talk a little bit about if that is something where you're in a good position. Now, I fully believe that when you're looking at trying to receive optimal health or be the healthiest that you can possibly be, it really requires a team. And what I mean by that is that the people that are supporting your goals, whatever that is, and by that I mean, you know, your doctor, your massage therapist, you know, somebody that you see for therapy, like for other forms, emotional, you know, whatever plays a role in your life to help your health overall, is part of that team. And it's really important that not just that you get along with them, that you know your energies kind of match, that you believe your values are similar. Because of course, if you have somebody who fully believes in medication, but yet that's not something that you really want to do, you need somebody that actually will kind of respect your wishes and play more along with what you want and what your health desires are. So first of all, the biggest part of that is you actually have to be your own best advocate. You know, here's the thing, and again, I say this all the time, doctors have my utmost respect. I know that they go through a lot of education, and I've worked with some doctors as their trainer and their nutritionist. So, you know, although they know a ton, they're not taught a lot about nutrition or prevention, unfortunately. And I feel like that's where the Western medicine has gone wrong, is that, you know, unfortunately, it's not only better for you, but it's a lot cheaper, prevention, especially when you're focusing on nutrition, than to try and solve it with medication, which usually means you're trying to take care of symptoms and not necessarily the problem, which we're going to delve into in just a minute as well. But there's so much more to it. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between a regular, like your primary care provider versus a specialist versus a functional practitioner versus a holistic doctor versus integrative, because they're all a little bit different. And of course, the determination is going to be made by you. You know, if you really feel like your needs are being met and that your goals and your values are being respected as well. Now, let me give you an example. Over the years, I've had a lot of different doctors moving, and you know, depending on if I was having babies or, you know, if I was just going in for whatever reason. And I'm going to, I don't even, to be honest, I don't remember the doctor's name, not that I would drop it. But a few years ago, I was in between doctors and I needed somebody local, and somebody gave me, you know, an idea of somebody to see locally. And within the first appointment with him, I knew he was not the doctor for me, because he, number one, talked over me and I couldn't even answer a question. He didn't even answer my questions. And the next time that I actually called the office with a question, they didn't even return my call. And very quickly, I found someone else. So at this point, not gonna lie, I choose to personally go with a female doctor for several reasons. Number one, the research shows that female doctors tend to spend more time with each client versus male doctors. Sorry, guys. And seriously, I've got male doctors as friends and clients, so it's not that I'm trying to disrespect them. This is just kind of the data. But also, you know what? No offense to guys, they don't have a uterus, and I really want a woman who understands, you know, how my body feels. And there's probably a lot of you as women who are out there who maybe have had some hormonal issues, or something is not quite right, and you've been maybe told that it's in your head, which, by the way, is garbage. If you're ever told that, please change your doctor right away. Because again, there are some things that can happen, especially when your hormones are off or not playing nice together, where you definitely need to have that checked out. You need to go somebody who understands a woman's body and how those, not just how those hormones work, but how they play together, because that is part of it. They need to be balanced, and it's different for each person. Now, I'm going to say that, you know, a really good doctor is going to look at you as your own person. You know, that's how I work as a personal trainer and nutritionist and a coach. You know, I don't cookie cutter anything. You know, I start with some basic formulas, but everybody's so different. And here's the crazy thing. Everything that's happened to you in your life makes a difference in your formula. I think it was last time I talked a little bit about how, whether you were a vaginal birth or a cesarean makes a huge difference in your future care. I know that seems so weird, but it totally does, because that is part of your microbiome and how that's created. Hi, Lynette. Yes, Lynette says they forget that we hire them to take care of us. Sounds kind of like our government. Whether you were breastfed or bottle fed, whether you were, there's so many different things, how many sets of antibiotics you've had in your lifetime, that all plays a role in your current health. So keep that in mind, that everything, first of all, is interrelated. I think one of the biggest frustrations, it can be a good thing or a bad thing. You usually have your primary care provider, who is your general practitioner or a family doctor, which is good because you can go to them for, some basic things for overall health, for well child checkups, whatever. And then they may send you to a specialist. And that makes complete sense, right? Because that specialist has now delved into something specific. So whether that's an orthopedic doctor or whether that's whatever, like I see a hormonal specialist at this point, obviously they have a lot more experience in something specific. So that makes complete sense. I think where we go wrong is that, unfortunately, those doctors don't necessarily integrate their care together for you, if that makes sense. So, my dream would be to have all of your doctors, for even just 15 minutes with their notes, sit in a room together with your picture or even you sitting there and discuss you. So if you have a group of specialists and you have your primary doctor, and they all talk together to create the perfect plan for you. Now, of course, that's wishful thinking, right? It doesn't tend to work that way. However, that being said, there are a lot of alternative medicine practitioners at this point that can at least somewhat guide you in a different direction. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk a little bit about today. And whether or not that's something for you, that's absolutely your choice. But I like when they start to look at you as a whole human being. Now, let me tell you what I mean by that. I had a client several years ago who was having knee problems. And I said, hey, I would love to go with you to your physical therapy appointment. Let's find out what's wrong. And so by going with him, and then I got a chance to talk to the physical therapist, we came up with a solution that it was actually his hamstrings were too tight, which was creating the issue with his knees. So by having that communication as his trainer, I actually could alter his program, which made complete sense at that point, and do a lot more stretching and some other things to increase his flexibility, which then decreased his pain in his knee, right? So again, you kind of have to look. Okay, so another example, when somebody goes, hey, I have a headache, and then we kind of start to go through things, and, I might ask, are your hips off? Or, have you ever kind of matched your legs? Is one leg shorter than the other? Sometimes it's functionally shorter between tight muscles or whatever. And they'll say, well, why would that create a headache? Because everything is interrelated. What happens with your feet can absolutely determine how your body responds, how you stand, how your spine works. Is it sitting straight up? If one leg's shorter, are you kind of tipped to the side all the time? Everything in you is interrelated. And I think part of the problem that we have, especially with Western medicine, is it focuses solely on the symptoms. Let's solve that specific problem. Versus, why do you have that problem? Let's fix that so that the symptoms in general go away, right? Symptoms just mean there is a problem. And it's unfortunate that we're just trying to put a Band-Aid on on a gushing wound. It just doesn't work because, of course, we're just not addressing the actual problem. So let's talk a little bit about how to pick the correct doctor. Now, there's going to be some basic issues like, location, obviously, somebody that you need to see frequently. You don't want to have to drive several hours to see. Now, if you're in a small rural town and you need to see a specialist, you might have to. A lot of people locally from here have to drive to Seattle, and that's a thing. But if you're having to go once a month, that just might be an obstacle you don't want to deal with. Number two, availability. A lot of times the really good doctors are hard to get into. They're not taking new clients, and that can be a problem as well. So, of course, getting in to see, because they always have to do that intake appointment, and they only do that certain times, and yeah, we've been through that several times in my household. So keep in mind that might be an issue. But also, is it somebody that came highly recommended? And even then, you may have to sit down and see, do we vibe? Are our values similar? Do we get along? Kind of like that doctor that I just went, yeah, I don't like you. Like, if you're not even looking at me, you're just talking. They know a lot, but sometimes they think that they're God, and they're human beings. So, you want somebody that's really going to listen to you, and that's super important. Fortunately, my last two doctors have been amazing. They have been female, and when I walked in, they know I do a lot of research, and they're willing to listen, and then obviously chime in when they think that we need to talk about something different. So that does make a difference. So if you do have a gender preference for whatever reason, that's totally up to you. It really is important, like everything, that you do your research and know that they're qualified for what it is that you're going into for them to. Just making sure I'm covering anything. If you, as we kind of delve into the different types of newer practices of medicine, if you really, again, you kind of have to look at your body as a whole. Sometimes we kind of look at the physical and we forget that the emotional and the physical actually have to jive. There's absolute research and data that shows that what you think obviously manifests itself physically, and what you do physically manifests itself emotionally and mentally. I listened to a really great podcast earlier today that talked about how a lack of certain nutrients and an overconsumption of sugar and processed, especially ultra processed foods, can create mental illness. Because of course, if you're not providing your body with the nutrients necessary to make the right chemicals and enzymes within your body, you actually start to have emotional, mental issues from that. So if you look at things like depression, even schizophrenia, that can absolutely become problematic because somebody is not eating correctly. And of course, with today's standard American diet, that is a huge issue. Always find it fascinating when I start talking to somebody new and they really think that they eat fairly healthy, and then I discover that there's some things in there that probably are playing a role in some of the issues that they're having. I am one of those people who believes nobody should be eating gluten, just because of course I've listened to enough data that shows that it can create some inflammation. And of course, what does inflammation cause? Inflammation causes disease. So again, part of it is just learning how that really does make sense. And what the issues can be there. So let's talk a little bit about holistic health. So we're going to talk holistic health, functional medicine, and then a naturopath, because they're all a little bit different. And those are, of course, a little bit different than our conventional doctors anyway. So you might have to dig a little deeper to find one of those types of doctors. Now, really, it kind of comes down to what they call personalized medicine. Is it really meeting your needs? If you tend to have some issues above and beyond the average person, you want to make sure you're getting the optimal suggestions, advice. You don't want just a doctor to say, well, you have symptom A, B, and C, so we're going to put you on this medication. Really, come on, what's the deep part of it? Because a lot of times, like I talked about last week when we talked about, are you causing your own disease? If it's a metabolic issue, it probably stems from your nutrition or your environment, or stress. So again, you want somebody who understands that and can take everything into consideration when they're giving you advice. So let's talk about holistic health. I definitely have a definition just to make sure I get it right, but I'll kind of go into it a little bit deeper. But holistic health is the art and science of healing that addresses the whole person, mind, body, mind, and spirit, and it can combine conventional and alternative therapies. So again, we're kind of delving into more looking at the person as a whole, but also addressing, emotional and spiritual. Doesn't necessarily have to mean religious. It could just mean, kind of that sense of self, right? Of knowing who you are, again, your values, how you feel, where you are and what you are in the world, and what your mission is in life. So I think that's important. I think we forget these things. Like I said, if you look at other countries that don't practice Western medicine, there's a lot else that's involved, especially holistically. A lot of it is part of their religion or taking a religious aspect to it that becomes spiritual. So again, you have to decide what you're comfortable with. But again, it's a different way of thinking versus, come in, that's your symptoms, here's your medication, let's go. And of course, pharmaceutical companies want that because that's how they make their money. And it's unfortunate because a lot of times we can not only prevent, but we can solve a lot of these issues, say type 2 diabetes, with just your nutrition, and it's not expensive. I've heard some ridiculous stats about, I believe it was like 1/3 Ooh, no, you're gonna, don't quote me on that. But how much of Medicare is contributed to type 2 diabetes, and it crazy numbers. I think if we could solve that portion of our issues in this country, man, that would be a huge deduction in healthcare costs. So, and if you just even look at the average person at this point, the last stat I heard was 54% of Americans are either diabetic or pre-diabetic, 75% are overweight, and 88% are metabolically unhealthy. That is unacceptable. Again, we've really gotten to a point in the history of our country where we're just not living a healthy lifestyle at all. We've kind of been inducted into the industrial age plus the technological age, where everything needs to be free, easy, and accessible immediately. And that's not what our bodies haven't kept up with that. They haven't been able to deal with that. So now we're seeing such crazy incidences of disease. So holistic just means looking at your full body as part of your health. And then functional medicine looks at your biology systems, looking for, it says it's focusing on biology and identifying and addressing the root cause of the disease, which we kind of discussed a minute ago. So we're treating the cause, not just the symptoms. I don't know about you, but do you really want to feel like that for the rest of your life and have to take a medication that has side effects and makes you feel even worse than what the medication is supposed to solve? If you listen to those commercials, did you know we're the only other country besides New Zealand that can actually have pharmaceutical commercials? Yeah, no other country allows that. So again, that flabbergasted me. I don't even have cable anymore. I have Sling, and I'm not kidding you. Every flippin' commercial, every commercial set has at least one pharmaceutical commercial, and I'm annoyed because even for the same thing, like, do you have ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, irritable bowel syndrome? Take this, no, take that, no, take something else. By the way, the side effects are you die, right? It's just frustrating that they're not really addressing, anything that's a digestive, inflammational issue obviously has some root in either nutrition or environment. So, yeah, it just makes me mad. I'm obviously passionate about this because the more I learn, the madder I get. And again, I don't know everything, but that doesn't stop me from trying to figure it out. I tell people I want to be as smart as a doctor without being a doctor, just at least so I can point people in the right direction, because we don't have to live like this. And it's just very frustrating. Very few people get a good education from their parents of how to live, eat, and live, just live a healthy lifestyle. So functional medicine, you can see how these kind of overlap just a little bit in what they solve and how they tackle your health. But now we're talk a little bit about finding a naturopath. Now that's a little bit different direction because of course now you're really working to stay away more from the chemical, synthetic, pharmaceutical end of things, and you're really trying to go with things that were created naturally in the earth. So herbal remedies, and what's really interesting to me, I remember hearing these like wives' tales, like, if you take this herb, it helps with this. And my mother-in-law used to have this really amazing, like really thick book of herbal remedies. And I thought, now that's interesting. But as my children grew up and she would recommend things like garlic oil in the ear for earaches, and we would use ear candles to suck out all the wax. And we would try all these interesting different things. I started to realize that there's something, hi Leanna, there's something behind these old wives' tales. Because before they had pharmaceutical medication, they had to do something. So now I'm not talking about snake oil in the days that all these people came around. We still have that. Seriously. Hey, take this supplement and you're going to lose fat overnight. Yeah. Yeah. But, if you really focus on, God put plants on earth for a reason, and there are benefits to a lot of these things. We just have to have the knowledge. So that's what a naturopath does. They tend to take a very more natural approach to your health. So it says it uses natural remedies to self-heal. So holistic uses conventional medicine in conjunction with other systems to provide holistic health, and naturopath tends to go more natural options for that. So, and honestly, you can do your own research on that and find out some great information. I mean, it's nice to have some professional guidance on that. I'm going to tell you it's a little harder to find a naturopath. I think locally, we have to actually go to Oregon. So, you might have to do some real research to find what you're looking for, but, it's not a bad idea. I personally don't want to take medication if I can absolutely help it. Now, that being said, I'm not saying don't ever take medication. What I'm saying is sometimes there's just a better option, and you need to have something that can help you explore all your options on that. Like I said, this is supposed to be personalized medicine. So, if you talk about, there's certain doctors, Dr. Mark Hyman, who I listen to a lot of his information because I really like his perspective, and he talks about integrative, taking an integrative approach. And what that does is it puts the patient in the center and addresses the full range of physical, emotional, mental, social, spiritual, and environmental influences that affect a person's health. And I do have a good friend here. Sorry, I got a hair that's driving me crazy. That is an integrative nutritionist, and she's amazing. She knows her stuff. She's done incredible research. I bug her fairly often for good information, but of course I send a lot of people to her as well, just because she does her due diligence of asking questions, not just about current issues, but again, clear back to past situations that can affect your health in the future. We talk a lot about like I said last week, we talked a lot about what you do in your teens, 20s, and 30s can absolutely affect your 40s, 50s, and beyond. But we don't think about it because we don't necessarily see the manifestations in those early years, but the toxicity builds up in our system. And then all of a sudden at 35, 40, 45, our body starts to do something completely different. And we're sitting here going, I don't know why. But again, it's what you did the last 3 or 4 decades that is now affecting you. It's now showing up because your body can no longer stuff it away in body fat or deal with it. Your body is definitely being affected by that. So I would say, it really has to be your choice. But what I would say is look for either a doctor or a team of doctors that meets and meets all your needs and benefits you in a way that you feel is appropriate for you. Like I said, you might not be able to find one doctor that can do that. I do have a really great primary care practitioner. I have an amazing hormone specialist, and they, I tell them everything so they can kind of, how is your body responding? Whether it's genetic or whatever, I am on a full range of bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. I think it's partially genetic and partially competing, and that's really hard on your body, for about 8 years. So, make sure that whoever you choose, you feel comfortable with, because you should be able to open up to them and tell them everything that's going on in your life, whether that's stress at home, because again, all those things affect you in a distinct way. So, really do your research and make sure that you find the person that's right for you. So, yeah. Hopefully that's all you need to know. So if you have any questions, if you have any comments, concerns, or if you've had an experience you want to talk about, either post it down below, or you can actually direct message me through Facebook Messenger. I do respond as long as you're not creepy. I love answering questions, and I find my very best questions from you guys and my clients. I really try to tackle things that are that come up often, because if more than one person's asking, it's probably a fairly common concern. And so that's where, and if I don't know, I can do some research. I think the biggest thing as a coach, I know I don't know everything. And the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. So then, of course, I'm off on a tangent. I was watching this morning a video on how to really grow optimal gardens. And my kids keep walking in my room going, "What are you watching?" I think it's amazing and interesting. And they don't want to see it. I'm like, well, you don't have to be in my room. Go away. So again, I love to learn. That is just part of who I am. And of course, then I turn around and want to teach. So have an incredible week, you guys. There will be Meals with Melissa this Saturday. Last week I needed a break. So kind of ran away from the world for a day. We all need that here and there. But have an incredible weekend. Until next time, that is Q&A Wednesday. Have a great night.